The purpose of this video is to help you create a computerized payroll register. You should have the file called PR open, and you should have your book turned to page 66. The goals of this problem are to prepare and use a payroll register, to learn how to use an equals if statement, as well as the equals round function, to identify and interpret payroll taxes, to alter the payroll register to accept new employees, and to interpret charts as well as prepare a chart. One of the most important and powerful features built into the Excel program is a command that allows the computer to make a decision. So far, we have been using math-based formulas to have the computer perform basic math computations for us. Now we will learn how to tell the computer to make a decision and carry out a result. We will do this through an equals if statement. The equals if function is an instruction that checks any condition. If the condition is found to be true, then it returns a predefined value that the user can set up. However, if the condition is false, it returns a different predefined value. It looks like this. If the criteria to be tested is found to be true, then the first result will be carried out. If it's found to be false, the second result will be carried out. You can also nest equals if statements if more than two results exist. To demonstrate this, let's start off with an easy equals if function. Let's take a look at the union dues for the first employee, Jones. According to the instructions in letter C on page 66 of your textbook, a $25 deduction is made if the employee is a union member. Knowing this, let's create an equals if function that will look to determine whether the employee is a union member. If the employee is a union member, then we will charge the employee $25, and if the employee is not a union member, then we will charge them $0. Let's take a look at the logic of this function. For formula 4, we will test to see whether the notation in cell B13 is a Y. That stands for yes. If B13 is found to be a Y, then we will charge $25. If not, then we will charge $0. Let's take a look at how this would work in Excel. So for formula 4, we're going to type equals if. We'll go take a look at the skinny cell. And if that is equal to a Y for yes, I have to put it in parentheses because it is a label as opposed to a cell reference. If that's the case, then charge $25, otherwise charge $0. And when we enter that, you'll see that $25 is the correct amount charged. So one more time, look at the formula bar. If B13 was found to be a Y, then the number 25 was placed in the cell. Otherwise, the number 0 would be placed in the cell. Sometimes there are more possibilities than just a yes or a no. So let's take an example of a more difficult equals if statement. Let's take a look at how Social Security works. These formulas are located in formulas 1 and 2. Letter A on page 66 states that the Social Security taxes are 4.2% of monthly gross pay up to a total pay of $106,800 for 2011. It further goes on to state that the employer's share is 6.2%. Please note that now employees and employers both pay matching rates of 6.2%, but we will use what the book gives us. In any case, I want you to think of all the possibilities related to Social Security that workers in a company could face. In other words, if you think about a room filled with 100 or even 1,000 workers, there's really only 3 possibilities that can happen. Give it some thought and see if you can boil them down to the 3. Have a chance to think about it? There are only 3. Number 1, the worker is a high wage earner and has already earned more than the maximum, so they will pay no more tax for the remainder of the year. That's one scenario. 2, the worker is close to maxing out, so only part of the wages are subject to the tax, and they will pay a partial tax on the wages. Or, number 3, the scenario that most of us find ourselves in, being students, is the workers are far from reaching the maximum, so all of their wages will be taxed. So ideally, we need to create one formula that will address all 3 of the scenarios. Wouldn't it be cool if we can create one formula that could address every worker in the company? Well, we can. Take a look at Formula 1 and 2 on the handout. It is set up as follows. The first test will see if the worker has earned more than the maximum. If the answer is yes, then the tax is going to be 0. If the answer is no, then we have to do one more test. So this will require the use of a nested equals if statement. This is where it can get a little tricky. Then we will test to see if the worker's pay this month plus what he has earned to date pushes him over the maximum. Then we will tax the difference between the maximum and what he has made so far. The only other possibility is that he is below the maximum, so all the wages this month will be taxed. Again, take the formula apart piece by piece. All of these formulas are described in detail on the accompanying handout. So let's take a stab at Social Security. Our first scenario is going to be to test if the worker's cumulative gross pay is greater than the maximum down here in cell 106,800, down here in cell G26, where the max was 106,800. If that's true, then the tax is 0. If it's not true, then we're going to go on to see if this payroll pushes him over the maximum. So we're going to say if this pay plus what he's made in the current month is greater than the maximum. If that's true, then we want to tax just the amount away that he is from going over, which means we would take 106,800, the cell where that's located, less what he's made year to date, and multiply it by the rate. The only other possible thing that could happen is his taxes are well below that of the maximum, so his entire payroll for this period will be taxed. One more thing about equals if formulas. The open parentheses have to match the closing parentheses. So here's 1 open, 2 open, 3 open, 4 open. So I need to have 4 closed. Do I? 1, 2, 3. Looks like I need to add another one. Press enter. And sometimes you have to troubleshoot the formula, so don't feel bad if that happens to you. I'm looking it over. And again, if I13 is greater than G26, then 0. If what he's made plus this period is greater than G26, then I want to tax the part that's over. Otherwise, I want to tax the whole thing. So I have 4 opens and 1, 2, 3, 4 closed. And as I'm troubleshooting, I see that I forgot the if in there. So let's try that. And there we go. So once again, the formulas are described for you in detail on the handout, and it looks like I got the appropriate tax of $378. The book is going to walk you through all 3 scenarios. In fact, let's test this out. If our worker has made $125,000, will he be taxed anything? As soon as I press enter, the tax should reset to 0 because he's over the max. And as you see, it did. So let me turn this back to 85,000. You're going to work through all 3 of the scenarios found in your text. This formula may seem overwhelming to you, but it has many different applications. In addition to the equals if statement, this problem will also introduce you to the round statement. When we multiply by decimals, some numbers can be very long. The computer stores many decimal places inside its memory. I believe it's close to 32 decimals. This can cause rounding issues. Some of you may recall these issues from lesson 1 in the QuickBook. Because of rounding, you were off by $1 on some of the templates that you created. The book referred you to the function in the appendix that can be used to round numbers off to a specified amount of decimal places. It should be used when multiplying by decimals. The formula looks like this. Equals round, you follow it by the number of decimal places. Let's go add the round function to our big long equals if statement. So I'm going to edit our first formula by going up to the top, typing the round function in right before the if. Let's see if we can get it in here. Equals round, open the parentheses up, go to the back of the formula and put in a comma and a 2 to tell the computer to round it to 2 decimal places. Once again, that will get rid of any rounding errors. Okay, Medicare tax is very straightforward. There are no maximums. So our Medicare tax is simply the gross pay multiplied by the Medicare tax rate. Because the Medicare tax rate has a couple decimals, it would be wise to use the equals round function. So equals round. Let me put in the formula to take the gross pay multiplied by the Medicare tax rate. And now all I have to do is tell the computer how many places I would like to round it. Since we pay our employees in dollars and cents, I'll round it to 2 decimal places, and that will prevent the errors from happening. Our net pay is our take-home pay, or what we take home after the deductions have been taken out. So for this formula, we could tell the computer to take our gross pay less the sum of all the deductions. You can check your answer against the book, but I believe that is the correct amount for the net pay. You can finish the problem off by completing the rest of the formulas. Once again, all of them are explained in the handout. I use many equals if statements in everyday life. In fact, one of them relates to all of you. I have a grade sheet where I set up an equals if statement for each one of your grades. So think about that. How many possibilities are there for a grade? Well, if you think about it, there are only 5. It's either an A or B or C or D or F. So I have created a nested equals if statement with 4 if conditions. It would test to see whether your percentage is greater than or equal to 90%. If it is, then you're assigned a grade of A. If it's not, then the computer goes on to test whether it's greater than or equal to 80%, and so on until it reaches the 4th statement. If it's not higher than 60%, then the only other option is to assign a grade of F. Let's hope that doesn't happen with your grade. So you will complete the formulas, and you will then be asked to do some data manipulations, including adding a new employee. Once again, all the formulas are shown on a handout. On the worksheet, when it comes to the chart analysis on page 69 of your text, remember that there are only 4 taxes that the employers typically incur. You had a chapter on this in Accounting 100. There are 2 matching taxes and 2 taxes that are paid by the employer only. The 2 matching taxes are Social Security and Medicare. These are now paid equally by both the employee and the employer. The other 2 taxes that are paid by the employer only are for unemployment taxes, both federal unemployment, known as FUTA, and state unemployment, known as SUTA. The rates for all of these are given in your text. Based on how the line on the chart behaves, you will have to decide which is which. For example, FUTA has a very low maximum of $7,000 annually and has the lowest rate out of all the taxes at 0.008 or 0.8%. So the lowest line on the chart, or Series 3, would be FUTA. Use this type of logic to differentiate which tax is which. On the worksheet tickler, you will be asked to add a new employee. Remember to adjust the formulas as necessary to make sure that the new employee's wages are picked up. And since the new employee will be brand new to the company, his year-to-date earnings will be 0. Finally, the chart tickler asks you to create a chart for one particular employee. Use this chart data table to reference the amounts for that employee, and then highlight these 10 cells to create a nice clean chart. Remember, all charts should be prepared in a specific way. Make sure you have a 3-part title: who, what, when. Make your chart the best it can be. Consider using data labels. In this case, you will show the percentage of each of the taxes and the resulting net pay. If you still aren't comfortable preparing charts, go review Lesson 5 on charts in the QuickBook. Finally, As always, if you need help, email me with your questions, attend a lab, come into my office hours, or drop by my traditional class. If none of those work for you, let's set up an appointment to meet. I look forward to helping you on this problem and to reading your updates by Sunday night.